Year and a half later.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It is January 30th, 2020, it's 6:30. The regular meeting will be on February 4th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Do call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. On Tuesday night, I will have the prayer. The Pledge of Allegiance will be with Vice Mayor Brown. Should all have a copy of the minutes from the January 9th, 2020 public hearing and regular meeting. We will have a couple of presentations. We will have an outstanding performance award at the meeting. And Chief Clark, we can get started with you.
Tonight, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate an individual that has recently been promoted to lieutenant at the fire department. If Shane Richardson and his family would come up. So, tell you a little bit about Shane. Shane came to us in July 2014 as a firefighter. He's worked his way up through the ranks as an engineer. He also put himself through EMT school. He's on our special operations. But the most of all, I don't know anybody that on the department that does not like Shane Richardson. He's a fantastic guy, has a great family, good head on his shoulders, and we look forward to him leading the fire department into the future. And I know that we'll have nothing but great things that will come from you. So with that being said, I'm going to hand this badge over to one of these little guys. All right. All right. We'll let them pin.
Okay, our next presentation will be the swearing in of our new canine officer, Bora. We're going to give it just a minute to let the room settle for just a moment so that we don't upset her at all. Right? No, we don't want to do that.
She's a pretty girl. Hey, boy. Larry, I'm gonna let you hold. She's trying to figure out what that is. Bora, you ready? Bora. 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 You ready? Don't look at your daddy and ask him. He's as nervous as you are. Boy, I'm going to administer the oath of honor of the Laverne Police Department for canines. And it's the same thing as we do for officers. We do the same thing for canine officers. I'm going to read it. And then I'm going to ask you to respond at the end. I'm not going to expect you to repeat all the way through like we normally do with the humans. You ready? I, K9 Bora, of my own free will and accord, do hereby and hereon sincerely promise and solemnly swear or affirm that on my honor, I will never betray my badge or profession, my integrity, my character, or the public's trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always uphold the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and the state of Tennessee, and the charter and ordinances of the city of Laverne. I will faithfully discharge the duties of a K-9 officer of the Laverne Police Department to the best of my ability. So help me God, and keep me steadfast in due performance of the same. Congratulations, sweetheart. You are now officially K-9 Officer Bora of the Laverne Police Department. Now we gotta get your signature on these. This is gonna be fun.
Oh, I'm so scared.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got my toy now.
What about the clapping thing?
Bora, you have anything to say? They've been working on her saying she does, but that didn't work tonight. That's okay. She had her first track yesterday, though. Did a really good job on it.
She's been active since the 15th.
She's been active since the 15th, definitely.
She is amazing.
And she's a girl dog, too, let me tell you. She's a dandy.
Who's the most vicious?
Pretty girl, aren't you? Here, we shake.
Sit. Sit.
Just easy thing, just reach out. Got it, got it.
CPD oil.
Hey, boy.
She's interested in all the smells in this area.
Yes. Good girl. Boy. Larry, I'll let you keep that for her.
Chief.
That's hers.
I will put it with her stuff.
Welcome to the team, Bora.
Thank you, guys. Leave it.
Everybody's afraid to clap.
Yes.
They'll go on her.
We will have departmental reports on Tuesday night. Then we're moving to old business, second reading 2020-01, an ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 6, Section 2-601 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the membership of the Local Emergency Planning Commission. This was discussed last month. Does anyone have any questions about this? Moving on to the consent agenda. We have A, approve city bids and purchases as recommended. First item we have is sole source purchase, chemicals for the sewer department. This is just purchasing some chemicals that we are required by Metro to use in our sewer for I believe odor control is part of it. But we did get in on the Metro Nashville bid pricing. So you should have the prices per gallon in your packets. And of course, we are getting a price increase, at least 3 to 4% a year on this product. So Felicia does highly recommend this for the city as it'll help in budgeting. We'll have a set price for the entire length of the Metro Nashville contract. Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to number 2, the ESRI software licensing and training. This is the basically the GIS software that we use. I believe Codes uses it some. If you're familiar with it, it basically outlines just about everything, whether it's contours, property owners, property lines. It's been out there for a while. City's been using it for years. And the whole contract here is in your packet. Any questions on ESRI? Moving on to B, approve agreement with the Tennessee Department of Health. This is our annual contract with them. It's $4,000 a year. Any questions? Moving on to C, which we have a bundle here, and you remember these from last month. So we've got approve a telecommunications service agreement with TDS for managed IP trunk voice services and internet services for the police station. And we also have, these are all kind of bundled together, but they're individual. We have approved a telecommunications service agreement with TDS for internet services for the fire station 2, for the library, city hall, as well as stormwater building. We had a slight change, I believe, with the contract, and that's why it just has to come back.
Yes, it had to come back after I'd sent them off, after you'd signed them. He told me that our rep had made a mistake, and to get that promotional pricing, we had to have a phone line on there as well. So went back and he said to apologize to y'all, by the way. The pricing is the same for the internet services, and we actually are even getting better pricing on the phone lines too. Every building has a fax line that we're able to use on that. Stormwater and the fire 2 has 2 lines of voice and fax, and stormwater has 2 faxes. And I broke it out just to since the numbers look different than they did last time. A monthly bill that we would be paying for internet and phone for these places right here was $1,877, and now it would be $840. So it's a pretty significant savings.
That is a huge savings per month.
Yes.
So, anyone have any questions about the TDS contracts? Okay, moving on to H. Authorize the fire chief to apply for a grant from Firehouse Subs for a rapid inflatable boat and motor for water rescue. Chief Clark, would you like to take this?
This is the same grant that I came up and requested last year. We're going to apply for this again. So it's for water rescue.
And as it states in your packet, it is a 100% grant. There's no matching funds from the city needed. Any questions?
I have a question for the chief. After we applied for that last year, some of the concerns was the rescue squads got the same grant for their inflatable boat. Is that going to be an issue this year?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because I know they were wanting to do something with us, but on paper, it was back-to-back grants for the same city.
Right.
So,
And so it would be 2 total different
okay,
entities, of course.
right.
We were told to make sure that we apply this year for this.
Great.
And I know the owners and everything, so I'm going to try to be in touch with them and make sure that things go through.
Wonderful.
Any other questions on the grant? Moving on to new business, Resolution 2020-02, a resolution of the City of Laverne Board of Mayor and Aldermen to declare property owned by the city to be surplus to the city's needs and directing disposal of the same. As you see in your packet, this is a variety of items. There's some ITEX cooling vests, some hazmat video entry systems, Sony video camera, a digital camera, and an LG TV. Any questions about this item? Moving on to number 7, Resolution 2020-03, a resolution to approve a land acquisition policy for the Cheney Woods Interceptor Sewer Line Project. This is tied to, as it said, the Cheney Woods Sewer Line Interceptor, and this is in regards to easements to get that project completed. Any questions?
What easements, so it's on this list, is that all the property that we have to come across?
This is, and I believe there's the appraisals, but this is all the ones, yes.
Bruce, do we have anybody rebuttal anything?
I have to defer to Adam on this. He's more directly involved in this project.
Well, there's not any rebuttals yet because this authorizes Croft, the group who's handling it, to go and actually see about acquiring that land for the city, those easements. Didn't mean to use the word land, but it's really easements. So this is just the list. They've not been approached about this as of this point, so there's no pushback yet.
Will this come back in front of us?
Well, no, actually, so Mayor, Board of Aldermen, what you'll be authorizing is actually on the last page, there's a total sum for what all these easements are valued at. You're gonna authorize basically Croft and Associates to go forth and offer that amount, which is shown in the valuation, which is, you know, they had a professional appraisal performed. I checked all the values, they're reasonable. Will people agree to them? We don't know, but this is kind of that first step. If they decide to refuse these valuations, they'll probably go into condemnation because that is basically our policy. We are fairly generous in our land acquisition policy. We're giving them appraisal value plus a 10% early signing bonus. And on top of that, we round to the nearest $25, and on most of these, they're relatively low valuations, so, and we're not actually taking the land permanently. The city already has easements along this. We're just widening the easement so we can access the bigger sewer that we're putting in.
And as it states in the resolution, if Croft is unsuccessful, that information is going to be relayed back to city staff, and then that will be in turn relayed to the board at the next board meeting following.
That's correct, Mayor, and typically the combination process is handled through the city attorney.
Correct.
Evan, is that something that will come back in front of us?
Yes, sir. So if the negotiations don't go well or not closed, that whatever's not closed would have to come back to y'all, and then y'all would have to vote to authorize the condemnation process after that.
I noticed
I'm sorry. go
Sorry,
ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. You had the floor.
It looks, I mean, it is fair market value, plus some on the rates around, you know. But there may be properties out there that, you know,
People tend to disagree with appraisals by nature. That's why the city has basically that 10% quick signing. It's basically an incentive for them to get this done. Typically, at least in my experience in condemnation, they tend to get less than what the valuation comes back at, so they're winning twice here, really.
so is this a budgeted item that comes out of the general fund?
It's out
This
of the
is
sewer
school.
fund,
At the sewer fund, okay.
so it's not a budgeted item, it's just typical part and parcel for this kind of project.
Great. Thank you for answering that.
Vice Mayor Brown.
I noticed on the spreadsheet under the 10% incentive, it's not exactly 10% on some of those lines. I was just curious to how the rounding was or what the,
It should have been exactly 10%, but there is a 10% plus round it to the nearest 25, so they should have been, everybody should have been to the good on 10%, so I might have missed one, but we'll have it corrected by the next time. Because I literally got this an hour ago.
okay. You'll see.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions about the resolution?
On the 10%, is that something that they go in at the beginning, or?
It is shown on their offer paperwork. It'll every parcel will basically, that's identified there is gonna get an offer sheet. It'll show their parcel number, who the owner of deed is. It will say your land is valued at this, that number, what plus 10% is, that number, and it basically outlines what the city's stance is on everything. Because we may also end up buying some ancillary stuff, like if we take out a prize begonia bush or something, sometimes we have to negotiate that out where we pay them $40 for a tree or something. That's just part of the process.
Great.
Thank you, Adam. Moving on to number 8, Resolution 2020-04, a resolution to accept the subdivision Cottages of Lake Forest Phase 4. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on January 28th, 2020. This is existing, now fully built out subdivision. It's Phase 4. Everything, as it was discussed at Planning Commission, was checked off as far as requirements that they had to do. Any questions about this?
Have we had any complaints?
Mr. Leach he said no. He just shook his head no to that, so.
Okay.
And that wasn't brought up. I believe Mr. Logan as well hasn't heard anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 9, first reading ordinance 2020-02, an ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 3, Section 2-301 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the membership of the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. This is fixing just some verbiage in here. The current version that we have states that we shall have one member of the board shall be either the Rutherford County Executive or a Rutherford County Commissioner. As you may know, Rutherford County doesn't have an executive anymore. They transitioned that years ago to the Rutherford County Mayor. So this just fixes that verbiage in this part of the ordinance so that it reflects it correctly. Any questions?
So we'll still have Commissioner Blair.
Yes, you will still have Commissioner Blair. This is just fixing it from being Rutherford County Executive to Rutherford County Mayor.
Does this verbiage have anything whatsoever to do with GNRC as far as what they offer?
No, this is just correcting our verbiage for it, since that position doesn't exist.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Moving on to appoint or remove board/committee members. First off, we have the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have one term vacant, 2 terms are expiring on 1/31 of 2020. The terms of Graham Coates and Craig Pollock will expire at the end of January. They both would like to remain on this board. We have been advertising these positions on Channel 3 and on Facebook. In addition to those 2, we also have a Robert Suvak, a Jeremy Phillips, Elizabeth Dandler, and Steve McGill have all applied for this. And their applications are in the packet for you. Moving on to B, Construction Board of Adjustment Appeals. We have 1 term that's vacant, 2 terms that expire on January 31st, 2020. The terms for David Waldron and Kevin Rowland expire at the end of January. Mr. Waldron would like to stay on the board. We have not heard back from Mr. Rowland. And then we also have a vacancy from when Kenneth Perkins resigned. So this has been advertised on Channel 3 and Facebook and will continue to be. But at this time, we've not received any other applications for this board. Moving on to C, Greenway Advisory Committee. We've got 1 term expiring on January 31st. That is Leslie Ballard. You remember she was just appointed in November, and she does want to stay on that board. We do not have any other applications at this time. Moving on, Historical Preservation Advisory Committee. We have 1 vacant term. Currently, we do not have any applications. This is being advertised on Channel 3 and on Facebook. We've not received any applications. So if we don't have any by Tuesday, it will be removed from the agenda. E, Local Emergency Planning Committee. We have 1 term vacant, which is our stormwater position. Staff is going to recommend that we wait on making an appointment until a decision is made regarding the project engineer position.
I have a question on that. There's been some interest from members of the Sheriff's Department and the school board and some of the private sector that Chief Clark and I have been talked about. How do we add positions to that board, like following other communities?
That would come through the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And the board would just determine if those are appropriate for the Emergency Planning Committee.
So does that need to be submitted in a question to the mayor and alderman, or through Bruce, or is that a recommendation from the committee?
It could come as a recommendation from the committee, but ultimately, it would be an ordinance that comes through this board to change the municipal code to add those additional members.
Okay. Because I see just our surrounding cities, and the county had a big exercise the other day. You know, they really push having the private sector safety directors and things like that on it. So I thought that would be something that I would work with the chief on it. Maybe we can submit something to the board.
And usually, we can invite any of these guests in, especially our businesses, our local churches, great, stakeholders, and also bring in multiple people. However, they're not part of that executive committee to make a vote. So I think it'll be what we need to do is go out there and bring those people in and be part of that preparedness of evacuation plans, things like that, but they just wouldn't be a vote. Does that make sense?
And that's where I'm troubled with it. They should have the right to vote. I mean, we have physicians, we have doctors at Smyrna Hospital that would like to be on our board.
So usually that is an executive type thing, so we can only hold so many on a committee, but only a certain amount can be able to vote
Okay.
whatever is on the table.
Chief Walker, would you like to add anything?
Some of those things you mentioned, Alderman Church, some of those responsibilities, professions, et cetera, have absolutely no background in emergency planning. Probably between me and Chris, we probably have as much as the overwhelming majority of the group as a whole with experience with that. And as you know, that's not something that's learned quick, fast, and in a hurry. Now, having them as participants in working on specific things, but there are many things they won't have the background for. So be careful about adding like doctors. For the hospital, that's great. But here in the community as a whole, for everybody, you need those folks here that are going to be doing the things up front. You've already got it with EMS, fire, law enforcement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So be careful about that.
I just think we're weak on the private sector. I mean,
Well, but you don't need to get too much of the private sector involved in what everybody else is going to do. If they've got their hands full with an event themselves, there are things they can help with, yes. But as far as the whole complete package, no.
Bruce, let me ask you this. The local emergency planning commission committee meetings, it's open to the public, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So anyone who is in the private sector or any of those other ones can choose to attend and sit and listen, and then they can individually give feedback to any members, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
going back to having one of the largest industrial parks in the state, we have some of the worst chemicals that are made to known to man in our city. I would think having a professional engineer or somebody that's outside of the rim of the city functions that deal with these chemicals and everything, they're risk analysis people. I mean, we work with them in FEMA. Every time there's a disaster, these people mobilize and they go all over the country, and they're in our backyard. So I would like to put somebody like that on our board. There's several in our community, and to me, I just feel that in the emergency response arena, like you both know, we don't have enough people on that board to
Mayor, point of order, this is not on the agenda to discuss tonight. It's something that could be put on the agenda for a future meeting, but it's not currently on the agenda.
I mean, it was open for discussion, so,
Well, it's a discussion on the vacancy.
so at this time, are you telling me we're not going to discuss this?
Well, I asked if there were any questions on the vacancy.
Okay. And this was about the vacancies, you know, how do we add to
The
it?
stormwater vacancy.
Hey, if you don't want to talk about it anymore, Mayor, that's fine with me. No problem.
Moving on to F, the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. We've got one term vacant. We have two terms that expire on January 31st of 2020. Those two would be Miss Amy Brown and Mary Jane Skinner. Both of them would love to stay on this committee, especially Mary Jane. We do have three applicants. We have Elizabeth Dandler, we have Mr. Bob Simon, we have Bethany Smith. Bethany does not live in the city of Laverne, and per the guidelines for this board, you do have to be a resident of Laverne with the exception of the county position. So she would not qualify for that board. Any questions on these three applicants, or these three openings? Moving on to G, we have the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. On this board, we have one term that expired at the end of December. That's Chuck Dillon. And we've reached out to him. He does wish to remain on this committee. Or we've reached out to see if he does, but we haven't heard back from him yet. I believe I did get a voicemail from him earlier today, so I'll get with you on that.
Okay.
And then we do have one position that's been open now for a little while, Mr. Kenneth Perkins. So as we have been doing, this will be advertised on Channel 3 and on Facebook. If anyone is interested in this position, you're welcome to apply. Moving on to mayor and alderman comments. Alderman No.
Yes,
He's got a list.
I have comments. They were written for me, so I would not forget. First of all, the senior center would like to, thanks for everyone that came out to the bean dinner, for all the volunteers. A special thanks to Chief Mike Walker for bringing his, I don't know what that is. Like 30 or 40 people came with him, his family. I don't know how many aunts, uncles, and kids he's got. We definitely want to thank Bridgestone for their $3,000 donation. I want to remind everyone about the Valentine Dance that's coming up February the 14th from 4 to 7:30 at the center. And then, of course, I want to start getting this out there. We're going to have another big yard sale on March the 21st with a rain date of the 28th. We're going to have $20 for a space, $5 for a table. Miss Melissa Joyner went today and rented us a storage unit so we can go ahead and start taking donations. If you have any friends or families, neighbors that would like to donate to us, we can make arrangements for someone to meet you at the storage center and start collecting goodies. So that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Church.
Oh, I would just like for Bruce to add to the agenda for the mayor alderman meeting discussion for the emergency planning committee. Have that added to the agenda, please, so we can discuss it, so we don't offend mayor and the vice mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Jones.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for being tardy. Again, I miscalculated the traffic, but other than that, I just look forward to Sunday.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Brown.
Well, I'm really excited about this at the beginning of this year, and I'm excited to announce that the Parks Department has met with the Greenway Department in our last meeting and in our coming up meeting to discuss the master plan for the parks and Greenway in Laverne. This is an excellent time for you to attend that next meeting. That'll be in February. And also we're having a public meeting that'll be at the library in March. I have posted on Facebook that information will be sent out through the normal channels of communication. So I'm really looking forward to getting some input from the community members of all ages. We want to please the children, but parks aren't just for children. We want to know what the adults want. There's a whole lot of ideas being tossed out, and we would like your help narrowing down the selection to a manageable amount for us to get started with and for us to plan for the next 10 years or so. So we would love to see you there, and there's also a survey on the parks Facebook page where you can go if you can't attend the meeting or don't have time to do that. You can go and still submit your opinions, and we will be so happy to include those in our plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to piggyback first off what Alderman No said. The bean dinner was amazing. They had actually already ran out of beans, so I just got stuck with some banana pudding. So I suffered through that, but it was wonderful, and I did see Chief Walker and his lovely bride there. We had a great turnout for the Martin Luther King Day ceremony. We had the president of MTSU here, and it was an amazing, amazing time. So thank you to everyone who helped make that possible. We're still working on the playground at Veterans Memorial Park, but we'll hopefully get that further down the road so that we can have an opening for that and have some new equipment for both young and old to enjoy, and even have an update hopefully soon on the dog park. So lots of good things are happening in the city, and definitely looking forward to a lot more with 2020. So I will call this meeting adjourned.